happens when your past comes back to haunt you, not as a ghost, but as a success story you could never have imagined. Two high school bullies decide to play one last cruel prank on their favourite victim. 10 years after graduation, they invite her to a glamorous reunion, expecting to mock her failure. But they have no idea that the night they planned for her humiliation will become the stage for their own downfall. Prepare for a story where the tables aren't just turned, they're completely flipped. Our story centres on Jessica and Tiffany, once the queens of Northwood High, who still cling to their high school glory. Their lives, however, are a facade. Jessica is wealthy, but deeply insecure, her cruelty a shield for her own emptiness. Tiffany desperately projects an image of luxury she can't afford, funded by an older man and drowning in jealousy of her supposed best friend. Their target is Mousy Meyer, a girl they nicknamed Mousy Meyer. In school, she was quiet, brilliant, and poor, an easy target. Her life was a silent struggle, marked by worn-out clothes and the constant biting cruelty of her peers. Now, a decade later, a single Facebook message is about to force a collision between the past and the present, setting the stage for a reunion no one will ever forget. "Mousy," Jessica said with a sharp snap of her perfectly manicured fingers. The sound cut through the low hum of the trendy Lincoln Park coffee shop. Tiffany, mid-sip of her oat milk latte, looked at her friend with a blank expression. The afternoon light slanted through the floor-to-ceiling windows, catching the dust motes dancing in the air. The smell of burnt espresso and steamed milk hung heavy. "Where?" Tiffany asked, her eyes scanning the polished concrete floor. "I don't see any mice." Jessica let out a harsh laugh. "Not a mouse." "The mouse! Mousy Meyer. Don't you remember her? The girl who wore the same faded Goodwill sweater for an entire school year." Understanding dawned on Tiffany's face, followed by a faint, reflexive grimace. "Oh, her. God, I'd almost managed to forget." She instinctively pulled at the sleeve of her cashmere top, a silent reassurance of her own carefully constructed status. The top was new, a splurge she couldn't really afford, but the image was everything. Tiffany shivered, though the cafe was warm. She'd just returned from a weekend trip to Miami, a gift from an older benefactor, and was determined to show off her tan. This meant wearing clothes that were laughably inappropriate for a Chicago winter. "It's all about the narrative," she'd tell anyone who questioned her. "A winter tan says I've been somewhere expensive. The light clothing says I have a heated car waiting for me. It screams success, even if you don't say a word." Her friends would nod, either too polite or too self-absorbed to point out the flaws in her logic. In reality, a beat-up Chevy Spark with a broken heater was waiting for her a few blocks away. But here, under the warm lights of the cafe, she was a winner. "So," she asked, forcing a casual tone, "what made you think of that sad sack?" Jessica just smirked, a cruel glint in her eyes. "The 10-year reunion is next month," Jessica announced, pulling out her phone. "And it just occurred to me that we've never once invited her. Can you believe it? A whole decade of parties, and we forgot our favourite charity case." She tapped her long stiletto nail on the screen. "I'm just dying to see what she looks like now. I bet she's gained £100 from cheap pasta and still shops in the thrift store bargain bin." Tiffany hesitated, a rare flicker of discomfort crossing her features. "I don't know, Jess. Won't that just be embarrassing? For us, I mean. We'll be this chic, successful group, and then she'll show up. It'll kill the vibe. The waiters at Aria will probably think we're her social workers." Aria was the chosen venue, a new, impossibly exclusive restaurant in the West Loop that required reservations months in advance. "Oh, don't be such a downer." Jessica waved a dismissive hand. "It'll be hilarious. We need someone to laugh at. Come on." Her fingers flew across the screen, her long nails clicking impatiently. After a moment, she found it. "Here she is. Look." She shoved the phone in Tiffany's face. The Facebook profile was sparse. The profile picture was a blurry photo of a sunset, The wall was filled with generic posts about animal rescue charities and links to news articles. Jessica snorted. Classic. The surest sign you have nothing going on in your own life is a profile full of sad puppies. No pictures, no achievements. Perfect. Without another word, she typed out a message, her thumbs moving with predatory speed. There. Invite sent. Just imagine the look on her face. Mousy Meyer at Aria. It's the punchline of the decade. Tiffany managed a weak smile, but the idea left a sour taste in her mouth. She felt a familiar pang of resentment towards Jessica, who orchestrated these little dramas with such effortless cruelty. It was the same way she did everything, effortlessly. Tiffany had to fight, scrape, and pretend for every scrap of her perceived status. After they left the cafe, Tiffany hurried to her car, the biting Chicago wind cutting right through her thin cardigan. Snow had started to fall, thick, wet flakes that were already turning the streets to slush. She could barely make out her old Chevy Spark, looking pathetic and small, parked between a gleaming Range Rover and a new Tesla. The cold of the vinyl seat seeped into her bones. The engine turned over with a pathetic groan. She was rich, she told herself, as she shivered violently, waiting for the defroster to clear a small patch on the windshield. The money from Mr. Harrison, her benefactor, was never enough. It came in sporadic bursts, most of which went to rent, designer knockoffs, and maintaining the illusion she was Jessica's equal. He'd often lecture her about financial planning. "You need to learn how to budget, Tiffany," he'd say, signing a check. She would just toss her hair and sneer. "Budgeting is for poor people." Now, sitting in her freezing car, the hypocrisy of her own words felt like a physical blow. Jessica called, her voice tinny through the car's cheap speakers. "Ready for the club tonight?" Tiffany's heart sank. Another night of expensive cocktails she couldn't afford. But what choice did she have? The image was all that mattered. "Of course," she lied, her voice bright and cheerful. "Just pulling up to my place now." She was still 3 miles away, stuck in traffic. Meanwhile, miles away in a quiet, book-lined home office, Eliza Meyer was closing her laptop for the day. She had never been a fan of social media, finding the curated perfection of it all deeply exhausting. Her husband, Ethan, often teased her about it. "You should get an Instagram," he'd say, smiling. "Post pictures of your lunch, your shoes. It's a rite of passage." She'd just laugh and shake her head. "Not for me." He'd sigh dramatically. "It would be so much better for my peace of mind. I'd know you were safely at home scrolling through feeds instead of out wrestling with that beast of yours." The beast was a massive, gentle Malamute she had rescued and was currently training for search and rescue work. "He's a sweetheart," Eliza would insist, "and far more honest than anyone on Instagram." Just as she was about to shut the laptop down, a notification popped up. A message request. From Jessica Moore. The name hit her like a physical shock, a ghost from a life she had worked so hard to leave behind. For a moment she couldn't place it. Moore? The name was vaguely familiar, but her mind resisted, trying to protect her. Then, with a sickening lurch, the memories flooded back. Jessica Moore, the queen bee, the ringleader. With trembling fingers, Eliza clicked on the message. "Hey, Eliza! We're having a class reunion on March 2nd, 7 p.m. at Aria. You should totally come." The cheerful, casual tone was somehow more insulting than open hostility. It was as if the years of torment had never happened, as if they were old friends. A cold fury, sharp and clean, rose in her chest. She slammed the laptop shut, the click echoing in the silent room. She hoped the physical act could somehow erase the message, make it unreal. But the past, once summoned, refused to be dismissed. The polished hardwood floors of her beautiful home faded away, replaced by the grimy, linoleum-tiled hallways of Northwood High. She was a girl again, trapped in a small, cramped apartment, the scent of her mother's strawberry jam mingling with the ever-present anxiety of unpaid bills. Her childhood had moments of light, her father reading Jules Verne aloud, weekend hikes in the nearby forest preserve, where they'd roast potatoes in a small bonfire. Her parents, both brilliant academics, had been so full of life and love, telling her and her little sister stories of their adventurous youth under the stars. But then the world shifted. University funding was cut. Adjunct professor salaries became impossible to live on. The adventures stopped. Her father, a proud man with a PhD in literature, started working nights, stocking shelves at a massive Costco warehouse just to make ends meet. He'd come home at dawn, his face pale and etched with an exhaustion so deep it seemed to have settled in his bones. He'd collapse on the sofa, not even bothering to change, only to wake a few hours later to go teach his classes. Eliza's heart ached just remembering the sight of him, a man of intellect and passion reduced to manual labour by cruel circumstance. His powerful hands, once used to gesturing wildly as he debated poetry, were now calloused and sore. Eliza would wake up early to make him a simple breakfast, a piece of toast, and instant coffee. Her mother would be there, rubbing a foul-smelling balm on his aching back, her whispers a mixture of love and desperation. "Don't push yourself so hard," she pleaded. But he couldn't stop. His sense of duty to his family was a relentless engine, driving him long past the point of breaking. For a while the exhaustion led him to drink. A beer after work, then two, then a bottle of cheap whiskey to numb the pain and the humiliation. He told himself it helped him sleep, but Eliza knew the truth. He was drinking to escape a reality he couldn't bear, a world that had no use for a poetry scholar. It was a dark time, but with her mother's fierce support he sought help, and thankfully never touched a drop again. Her mother took on extra tutoring jobs, returning home late, her own face a mask of fatigue. There was no time for family hikes anymore, no energy for stories. They were in survival mode. They never knew the full extent of Eliza's torment at school, and she could never bring herself to tell them. How could she add her own burdens to their already crushing weight? She was a tall, awkward teenager, growing faster than her parents could afford to buy new clothes. Kind neighbours would give them bags of their own children's outgrown items. They were clean and well kept, but they were always out of style, marked as hand-me-downs. To her classmates, these clothes were a uniform of shame. They called her outfits rags and goodwill garbage. The bullying was relentless and inventive. It wasn't just words. Her textbooks would be torn, her homework defaced. More than once she found her backpack in the cafeteria trash can, its contents covered in ketchup and discarded milk cartons. The humiliation of having to dig through garbage while her classmates laughed is a feeling she would never forget. Her school bag itself was often used as a soccer ball in the hallways between classes. The teachers, overworked and underpaid, chose not to see it. They were exhausted by their own struggles, and intervening in teenage cruelty was a battle they had no energy for. It was easier to look away, to pretend that the quiet, sad girl in the back of the classroom was simply shy, not under constant siege. Despite it all, Eliza excelled academically. She brought home straight A's and academic awards, finding refuge in the quiet certainty of books and equations. It was her only form of control in a world that felt chaotic and hostile. After a particularly vile incident where Tiffany threw a dirty cleaning rag at her in the locker room, she decided she would drop out after 10th grade. She couldn't take it anymore. But when she told her parents, their faces fell with such profound disappointment that her resolve crumbled. They begged her to stay, to finish, to get her diploma so she could have the future they couldn't. She couldn't refuse them. So she endured 2 more years of hell. She pushed the memories down, burying them under layers of work and success. Hell, Eliza whispered aloud, the word a puff of air in her quiet office. That was my own personal hell, and now they have the audacity to invite me back. Her first instinct was to delete the message, block Jessica, and pour herself a glass of wine. Her throat was dry, her hands cold. She needed to walk, to move, to feel the solid ground of her present life beneath her feet, and remind herself that the past was truly past. She stood up and walked out of the office. As she passed the large, ornate mirror in the hallway, she caught her own reflection and stopped. She looked at herself, truly looked, as if seeing a stranger. A confident, poised woman stared back. Her hair was professionally styled, her clothes were simple but elegant, and her eyes held a strength that the girl in the hallway could only have dreamed of. A slow smile spread across her face. It started as a hesitant tremor, a flicker of an idea, but then it grew, becoming firm, confident, and sharp as glass. She walked back into her office, opened the laptop, and typed a single simple word in reply to Jessica's invitation. Perfect. Then she went to find her husband. He was in the living room, reading by the fire, the huge Malamute asleep at his feet. She stood before him, her hands clasped together. "Ethan," she said, her voice steady, "I think I need to buy a new dress." He looked up, a question in his eyes. She explained the situation, the message, the flood of memories, the sudden, inexplicable decision to go. He listened patiently, his expression unreadable until she finished. "I can't do it," she finally admitted, her composure cracking. "I can't face them. I don't want to." Ethan stood up and took her hand. It was ice cold. "Then don't," he said softly. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone, Eli. You can stay right here with me, and we can order a pizza and forget this ever happened. I won't say a word." She looked at him, her eyes filled with turmoil. "But," she whispered. He sighed, gently squeezing her hand. "But, then you might never be free of it. Sometimes you have to walk back into the fire just to prove to yourself that it can't burn you anymore. As long as you're standing here, afraid to go, you're still that girl they pushed around in the hallway. But you're not that girl anymore. You've just forgotten to notice." "I don't know," she murmured, looking down. "Sometimes I feel like I am." "Well, I know," he said firmly. "I know the woman I married. You're strong. You're brilliant. You've built an incredible life for yourself from nothing. You'll know it too, the moment you see them and realize with absolute certainty that you just don't care what they think anymore, not even a little." He walked to the closet and pulled out her favorite coat. "Get dressed," he said with a warm smile. "We're going dress shopping. And remember, you're doing this for you, not for them, for you." His belief in her was a shield, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of real courage. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was time to finally face the ghosts of Northwood High. In the deepening twilight, Aria Restaurant glittered like a jewel box against the Chicago skyline. Festive lights twinkled along its massive windows, casting a warm golden glow that promised refuge from the wet, slushy March evening. Guests hurried from their cars, eager to escape the wind and enter the opulent warmth inside. In a prime corner of the main dining room, nestled against a panoramic window with a breathtaking view of the Chicago River, the alumni of Northwood High were gathered. The table was a mix of nervous energy and forced pleasantries. "I can't believe you actually invited her," a stout man named Mark said, his voice a low grumble, directed at Jessica. "It's a bad idea, Jess. If I'd known you were going to pull a stunt like this, I wouldn't have come. We were monsters to that girl in school." "Oh, lighten up, Mark," Jessica drawled, propping her designer boots on the plush velvet banquette. "It's not too late to leave. Don't let the door hit you on the way out." "God, you people are so boring now. Don't you remember how to have fun?" "That wasn't fun, Jessica," Mark replied calmly, his gaze steady. "That was cruelty. And frankly, it's pathetic that you still find it entertaining. It's time to grow up." Tiffany, sensing the mood turning, jumped in. "Can't you take a joke, Mark? Besides, you weren't exactly an innocent bystander back then." Mark didn't flinch. "No, I wasn't," he admitted, his voice laced with regret. "And it's something I'm deeply ashamed of. My parents raised me better than that. They taught me that life can turn on a dime. Now that I have 2 daughters of my own, I understand. We were vicious, and she never once fought back or complained. If Eliza actually shows up tonight, I will not let you say a single word to hurt her." "And me neither," a voice added. It was Leo, a quiet, blonde man who had flown in from San Francisco for the event. He was dressed more casually than the others, in expensive jeans and a simple cashmere sweater. Jessica, I think if you invited her, it should be to apologize. Jessica stared at him, aghast. Apologize, she sputtered, her voice rising. It was the first time anyone had openly challenged her authority since middle school. She was the undisputed leader of their clique, the one who set the tone. Tiffany tried to intervene, but Jessica silenced her with a sharp look. Tell me, Leo, she began, her voice dripping with venom. Where did you fly in from? The Bay Area, right? You work in tech, I assume. Make a lot of money? Leo nodded, looking uneasy. And Mark, she turned her glare on him. You have your own dental practice now, don't you? Very successful. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hiss. So tell me, why on earth should we, successful, wealthy people, apologize to some nobody? She probably cleans offices for a living now. They probably let her take home the leftover sandwiches from the break room. Her words hung in the air, ugly and sharp. You still don't get it, do you? Leo said, shaking his head with a look of pity. We're staying, Mark added, his arms crossed, but only to make sure you behave. The rest of the table fell into an awkward silence, the festive mood completely shattered. Tiffany glanced at the large modern clock on the wall. Well, your guest of honour is late, she said, with a nervous laugh, trying to break the tension. She's probably not even going to show. You all got worked up over nothing. Just then, the hostess led a woman toward their table. For a moment she paused at the edge of their group, a silhouette against the glittering city lights. Then she took a deep breath and stepped into the warm glow of the candlelight. Hello, everyone, she said, her voice calm and clear. An immediate stunned silence fell over the table. They stared, their minds struggling to connect this vision of elegance and poise with the awkward, hunched-over girl from their memories. Good evening, Mark said, recovering first. I'm sorry, you must have the wrong table. The woman smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached her eyes. No, Mark, I don't think I do. He squinted, his brow furrowed in concentration, and then his eyes widened in disbelief. Eliza! Oh my God, Eliza! Leo jumped to his feet, his chair scraping against the floor. The exclamation was a mixture of shock and pure, unadulterated awe. Is that really you? He almost shouted, his face breaking into a wide grin. Hello, Leo, she said warmly. He couldn't contain his excitement, rushing forward to give her a gentle, respectful hug. You look incredible, he stammered, pulling away. He couldn't reconcile the image before him with his memories. The Mousy Meyer of his youth was gone. In her place stood a woman whose simple, perfectly cut silk dress highlighted a graceful figure. Her dark hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders, and her face, with minimal makeup, radiated a serene confidence. You're a knockout, Eli, he finished, beaming. Jessica sat frozen, her back pressed hard against the banquette. Her perfectly painted nails were digging into the expensive upholstery. You're ruining your manicure, Tiffany hissed under her breath. She too was staring, her mouth slightly agape. But beneath her shock, a tiny treacherous seed of satisfaction was taking root. Jessica's cruel little plan had backfired spectacularly. The prank was on her, and for the first time in their long, toxic friendship, Tiffany was thrilled to see it. Just then, a waiter approached their table carrying an enormous, breathtaking arrangement of white orchids. Excuse me, he said, addressing the group, but his eyes were on Eliza. A delivery for Miss Meyer, from Mr. Ethan Vance. Vance! Jessica's voice was a strangled shriek that turned several heads at nearby tables. As in, the Ethan Vance, the real estate developer? Eliza simply nodded. Yes, she said quietly. He's my husband. Jessica slumped back against the cushions as if all the air had been knocked out of her. Her face was a pale mask of fury and disbelief. You have kids, I suppose? She spat, the question an accusation. Yes, a son. His name is Leo. He's 5, Eliza replied, her voice even. Anything else you'd like to know? Yes, Jessica sneered, her composure returning as pure venom. How did you do it? What's your secret for landing a man like that? There was no secret. Eliza explained that she'd earned a full scholarship to Northwestern, graduated top of her class with a business degree, and met Ethan in a graduate seminar. They were intellectual equals before they were anything else. And where did you get the money for Northwestern? Jessica pressed on, relentlessly searching for a weakness. I remember your parents were practically broke. Are they even still around? The cruelty of the question was stunning. Jessica, that's enough, Mark said, his voice hard as steel. Eliza held up a hand. It's all right, Mark. I got a scholarship, Jessica. I didn't pay a dime. And my parents are wonderful, thank you for asking. They're actually in the Caribbean right now with our son, enjoying a much-deserved vacation. Tiffany watched Jessica's face contort with rage. The little nobody snagged the biggest fish in the city, she could hear Jessica thinking. She set up her whole family on his dime. The nerve! Tiffany almost felt sorry for her, but the feeling was quickly replaced by a sense of liberating justice. Andre, Eliza said, turning to the waiter who was still holding the flowers. Could you please have these put in my office? They're lovely, but they take up a bit too much room. The waiter, a man who Tiffany recognised as the restaurant's general manager, bowed his head slightly. Of course, Ms. Meyer. Right away. The title hung in the air. Ms. Meyer. Not a customer, not a guest. The authority in her tone and the deference in his was unmistakable. You work here, Jessica stammered, grasping at straws. Eliza gave her a final pitying smile. Work here? No, Jessica. I own it. She turned to the rest of the shocked table. Thank you all for the invitation. It's been illuminating. Please enjoy your evening. The entire bill is on the house. In fact, she added, a brilliant afterthought, I've arranged for each of you to receive a favourite guest card. It's good for a 50% discount for life. Please come back any time. With a final gracious nod, Eliza turned and walked away, her head held high. The entire table sat in stunned, absolute silence, watching her go. At the exit, the general manager held her coat for her. She gave him a few quiet instructions, shed a warm smile, and then disappeared through the heavy glass doors into the snowy Chicago night. Standing on the steps of her restaurant, Eliza took a deep, cleansing breath of the cold, fresh air. The snow was falling gently now, blanketing the city in a soft, quiet beauty. She felt lighter than she had in years. She got into her car, a comfortable and safe SUV, and dialed her husband. Hey, you! His voice was warm and filled with concern. Everything okay? Everything is perfect, she said, a real joyous laugh bubbling up. Thank you for the flowers, and for everything else. I love you. I'm on my way home. Back at the table, Tiffany finally broke the silence. She looked at Jessica, who was staring out the window with a dead expression, and let out a genuine, unrestrained laugh. Mark raised his champagne flute. A toast, he announced, his voice ringing with admiration. To Eliza Meyer. Proof that the best revenge isn't anger, it's a life lived extraordinarily well. And to finally growing up. Everyone at the table, except for a silent, broken Jessica, raised their glasses in agreement. Eliza, meanwhile, was driving home, her heart full. I'm thinking grilled cheese and tomato soup when I get home, she said to Ethan. The classic, he replied. I'll get it started. In the end, she had faced her demons and realised they were just sad, small people, trapped in a past she had long since escaped. She was free. Thank you for joining us for this incredible story of transformation. If you were moved by Eliza's journey, please show your support by hitting the like button, subscribing for more content, and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had a reunion experience that completely surprised you?